The first thing I noticed when I came back to life was that desk 12 still wobbled. Not much. Just a small unevenness in the front right leg, a faint knock against the polished floor whenever I shifted my weight, the kind of sound nobody else would hear, unless they had once built an entire life around regretting what happened at that desk. I was sitting in the North Examination Hall of Bellwether College, spine straight, hands folded over a sealed blue answer booklet, and the clock above the invigilator's table read 8:42 a.m. The scholarship examination would begin at 9. The winter rain had turned the high windows silver. 200 students sat in perfect rows beneath the old timber beams, each with a candidate card, a pencil case, a transparent water bottle, and the frightened stillness of children who had been told their futures were merit-based by adults who had already chosen favorites. On the top left corner of my desk, a white card read, Desk 12, Candidate 184, Mira Calder. I stared at that number until the room narrowed around it. Desk 12. The place where I had once obeyed. The place where Mrs. Evelyn Hartwick, Director of Examinations and mother of Bellwether's Golden Girl, had bent beside me during the final collection period and whispered, "Swap papers with Beatrice. You'll survive one bad score." She won't. In my first life, I swapped. My full answers went into Beatrice Hartwick's envelope. Her half-empty booklet went into mine. She won the Harrington Scholarship. I lost my bursary, my place, my confidence, and eventually the kind of future people pretend exam results do not decide. Years later, I died at a crosswalk outside a testing center when a courier van carrying sealed exam packets ran a red light in the rain. My last thought, absurd and sharp as a snapped pencil, was, I should have stayed at desk 12. Now the desk knocked once beneath my wrist, as if reminding me it had waited. I looked down at my unopened booklet, then at the incident slip clipped under the top edge of the desk. This time, I was not moving. Bellwether College loved the word integrity. It was carved into the entrance arch, printed on exam guidelines, embroidered beneath the school crest, and repeated so often in assemblies that it became less a virtue than a decoration. The Harrington Scholarship Examination was the school's grand performance of fairness. One day, 3 papers, external moderation, anonymous marking, full final year tuition, university mentorship, alumni sponsorship, and a direct pathway into the Bellwether Honors Program. It was supposed to be the exam that could not be bought. That was why families like mine believed in it. My mother believed so hard she ironed my blouse twice the night before in my first life, even though the collar was fraying and no amount of steam could make poverty look crisp forever. My father had been a bus mechanic before his hands developed tremors, and after that he repaired bicycles in our apartment courtyard for cash. My younger brother, Leo, was 12 and clever in the way hungry children become clever, always counting what things cost before asking for them. Bellwether had accepted me on a partial bursary because my entrance scores were too high to ignore and my hardship file was too documented to dismiss. The Harrington Scholarship was the only way I could stay for year 12 without my mother taking a night shift that would break her body and my father selling the tools that made him feel useful. So I studied for the exam like other people pray, secretly, constantly, with terror disguised as discipline. Desk 12 had not seemed important in my first life. It was simply my assigned seat, 3rd row from the front, 2nd column from the left, close enough to hear the invigilator's pens click and far enough from the windows to avoid the draft. The exam was divided into 3 booklets: quantitative reasoning, critical essay, and evidence analysis. Students wrote in blue answer booklets sealed by desk number, not candidate name, so external markers could score anonymously. Each booklet had a small detachable desk strip in the corner. We were told not to remove it. We were told to remain seated while scripts were collected. We were told any irregularity had to be recorded on the incident slip clipped under the desk. We were told many things. What nobody told us was that rules protect only the student who knows to make adults follow them in the moment, not later when the paper has already changed hands. Mrs. Evelyn Hartwick ran the Harrington exam with a gentleness that made her cruelty harder to name. She was not severe in the obvious way. She had warm brown eyes, pearl earrings, and a soft voice that lowered whenever a student panicked, as though compassion itself had leaned closer. Parents adored her because she remembered names. Teachers deferred to her because she understood policy. Students trusted her because she never shouted, never humiliated anyone publicly, never appeared to need power. She simply had it. Her daughter, Beatrice Hartwick, sat 2 rows ahead of me and 6 desks to the right in my first life, at desk 27, wearing her hair in a perfect ribbon and her panic behind a perfect face. Beatrice was Bellwether's academic princess, debate champion, chapel reader, orchestra captain, student ambassador. The girl visitors saw on brochures when the school wanted intelligence to look graceful. She was not stupid. That matters. She could write a charming introduction, quote philosophers, solve familiar algebra, and make teachers feel their lessons had produced elegance. But she did not do well with unfamiliar evidence. She froze when questions twisted. She panicked when a problem required building a method instead of recognizing one. The Harrington exam was designed to reward exactly that kind of thinking. That was why her mother needed my paper. In my first life, I had finished the exam with 17 minutes to spare. I remember because I checked the clock and felt, for once, something like safety. My quantitative booklet was full, my essay had a thesis sharp enough to bleed, and my evidence analysis answer traced the hidden contradiction in a council funding table most students missed. I had even used the final minutes to label every graph clearly. Then the collection bell rang. Pens down. Remain seated. Do not close your booklets until instructed. The hall exhaled. Students dropped pens, rubbed eyes, flexed fingers. I sat at desk 12 with my hand resting over the booklet, feeling the first small bloom of hope. Then Mrs. Hartwick walked down the aisle. She did not go to every desk. She came straight to mine. "Mira," she whispered, bending just enough that her perfume covered the smell of paper and rain. "There is an emergency." I looked up. What happened? Her eyes flicked toward desk 27. Beatrice sat very still, face colorless, her answer booklet closed too early, hands clenched in her lap. Beatrice's evidence booklet was compromised. Compromise, a printing fault. It will affect her script. The lie was smooth. In the first life, I was still innocent enough to believe smoothness was a sign of truth rather than practice. "The collection log is already under pressure," Mrs. Hartwick continued. "I need you to swap papers with her."
Ist sehr her.
Swap papers. Only the final booklet. But that's my answer. You are strong across the other sections. You will survive one weaker mark. Her voice softened further. She won't. I remember the exact pressure of her fingers on the edge of my desk. Not touching my hand. Touching the wood. Claiming the space before claiming the paper. I should have said no. That is the easy sentence people who were not there get to write. But Mrs. Hartwick did not ask as a thief. She asked as the person who controlled my bursary recommendation, my hardship review, the letter my mother needed for fee extension, my placement in the senior honors stream, and Leo's application to the Bellwether Saturday mathematics program for local students. She did not list those things at first. She let me think of them. Then, when I hesitated, she helped. "Your mother's payment plan is reviewed next month, isn't it?" she murmured. "And your brother is on the outreach waitlist. You know how competitive those places are." I would hate for an act of selfishness in a stressful moment to affect how the school views your family's gratitude. Gratitude. The favorite leash of every institution that lets poor students in through a side door and expects them to spend the rest of their lives whispering thank you for the privilege of standing near the main staircase. "Swap papers with Beatrice," she said. "Do it quietly. I will handle the envelopes." So I did. During the controlled collection, when students were instructed to pass booklets to the aisle, Mrs. Hartwick paused between our rows, created a tiny confusion with the envelope labels, and slid Beatrice's thin booklet onto my desk while lifting mine beneath her attendance clipboard. I remember the weight difference. My booklet had bulk, pages filled, diagrams, paragraphs. Beatrice's had almost nothing past section B. It felt light enough to float away. I wanted to scream. Instead, I wrote my candidate number on the booklet she gave me because Mrs. Hartwick mouthed, "Now," and my body obeyed before my soul could catch up. My score came back low enough to end my scholarship chances, but not low enough to invite investigation. Beatrice won the Harrington by 3 marks. At the ceremony, Mrs. Hartwick cried while placing a hand over her daughter's. Hard work has a way of revealing itself, she said. The hall clapped. I clapped too, because I had not yet learned that clapping for your own erasure can bruise your palms for years. After that, my first life shrank quietly. Bellwether did not throw me out dramatically. Schools prefer financial exits to emotional ones. My bursary was reduced. The honors stream place went elsewhere. My mother took extra hours cleaning offices near the train station. My father sold his diagnostic tools, then half his bike repair equipment, then stopped going to the courtyard because people asking for help reminded him of what his hands could no longer do. Leo did not get into the Saturday mathematics program. He pretended not to care and began doing sums alone on scrap paper, pressing so hard the pencil tore through. I transferred to a cheaper school for year 12, where teachers were kind but tired and nobody had heard of the Harrington exam except one counselor who said, "Those things are political anyway," as if that comforted anyone. Beatrice went on to win debates, scholarships, a university medal, and later a fellowship in education policy. She wrote an article at 23 about fair assessment under pressure. I read it on a cracked phone during my lunch break at a tutoring center and laughed. So suddenly my supervisor asked if I was okay. I was not okay. I was employed, alive, functional, and not okay in ways that did not qualify for leave. I spent my 20s near exams because unfinished injuries often choose our careers before we do. I became a test prep tutor, then an assessment administrator, then a casual proctor for national exams. I learned the machinery: desk maps, script envelopes, serial codes, incident reports, chain of custody seals, the boring safeguards that exist because somewhere, sometime, someone powerful tried to move paper from one hand to another and call it procedure. Every time I clipped incident slips beneath desks, I thought of desk 12. Every time I told students to remain seated until collection was complete, I heard Mrs. Hartwick whispering that I would survive. I wanted to tell them, the rule is not a suggestion. The desk is a witness. Make the room follow its own instructions. But proctors are supposed to sound calm, not haunted. So I said, please remain seated. I died on a Tuesday in November outside the Westport Assessment Center. Rain again. Always rain in the memories that matter, as if the sky has a contract with regret. I had been supervising a Year 10 numeracy assessment and stayed late to help seal courier packets because one of the junior staff miscounted envelope labels. I carried a stack of unused script booklets to the archive bin, signed the dispatch log, and stepped into the crosswalk with my umbrella half open. The courier van came from the left, too fast for the wet road, its tires hissing, its headlights smeared across the pavement. I saw the driver's face for one fraction of a second, shocked, young, already too late. The van hit me hard enough that the world became paper thrown into air. I remember lying on the road with rain striking my cheek and sealed exam packets spilling from the back of the van, blue and white envelopes sliding through the gutter. One packet stopped near my hand. The label read Desk Allocation Row C. My vision narrowed around it. I thought, with a bitterness so clean it almost felt like prayer, I should have stayed at desk 12. Then the hall returned. The desk wobbled. The white card read my name. In the second life, I did not waste rebirth on disbelief. Disbelief is expensive, and I had already paid once. I lowered my gaze to the incident slip clipped beneath the front edge of desk 12. It was a narrow yellow form, folded in thirds, titled Candidate Irregularity Record. In my first life, I had noticed it only when leaving, after it was too late, and wondered with a sickness I could not name whether I could have used it. Now I slid one finger under the clip, just enough to feel the paper's edge. Not removing it. Not yet. At the invigilator's table, Mrs. Hartwick arranged envelopes with her pearl bracelet clicking softly against the wood. Beside her stood the external supervisor, Mr. Adrian Bell, a square-shouldered man with a gray beard and the expression of someone who believed forms existed because people lied. I liked him instantly. In the first life, I had barely noticed him. That was another lesson. Honest witnesses are often present, but unused. Beatrice sat at desk 27 again. Of course she did. Her ribbon was pale blue this time, or perhaps memory had sharpened color. She looked composed from a distance, but I could see her right foot tapping beneath the desk.
Top, top, top.
Panic has rhythm. Mrs. Hartwick glanced at her twice in the 10 minutes before reading time. Not obviously, not maternally, but her eyes landed there the way a needle finds north. Then she looked at me. I kept my face blank. She smiled, the soft, encouraging smile she gave scholarship students before taking something from them. My hands remained folded over my desk card. Desk 12 knocked gently beneath my wrist. At 8:55, Mr. Bell read the rules. All candidates must remain seated during writing time and collection. Answer booklets are assigned by desk number. Do not exchange materials. Do not pass booklets except when instructed by an invigilator. Any irregularity, including a request to move, exchange, or alter materials, must be recorded on the candidate irregularity slip and witnessed before the candidate leaves the hall. I almost laughed. The rule had been there in the first life, spoken into the same air, and still I had let fear make it invisible. Mrs. Hartwick stood beside him with her hands clasped, smiling faintly. Did she hear the rule as a boundary or as furniture? I wondered. Powerful people often treat rules like chairs, useful when they need support, movable when they need space. The first 2 papers unfolded exactly as before, which was more frightening than if they had changed. Quantitative reasoning opened with sequences, rate problems, geometry, probability, and the nasty optimization question involving garden fencing that had made 3 students cry in the first life. I solved it faster this time, partly because memory remained, partly because I had lived long enough as a tutor to see through the exam writer's little tricks. Critical essay asked whether competition improves learning or distorts it. I nearly choked on the irony. In the first life, I wrote a balanced essay because I still thought balance meant fairness. This time, I wrote that competition reveals character only when the conditions around it are honest, and that institutions often confuse unequal pressure with equal opportunity. I did not mention Mrs. Hartwick. I did not need to. The sentence knew who it was for. Evidence analysis came last, after the lunch break, and the entire hall felt thinner by then, as if everyone's nerves had been sharpened with the pencils. The booklet contained a fictional school funding table, attendance records, scholarship outcomes, and a memo about resource allocation. The hidden contradiction involved transport subsidies being counted twice, making an equity program appear more effective than it was. I remembered the path, but I still worked it carefully. Rebirth is not a substitute for accuracy. I filled the booklet with clean paragraphs, labeled calculations, and a final recommendation, so precise I wanted to thank my future dead self for becoming an assessment administrator. At 2:48 p.m., 12 minutes before the final collection bell, Beatrice froze. I did not see her face directly, but I saw the signs: pencil down, shoulders rigid, left hand rising to her throat, then lowering when she remembered where she was. Mrs. Hartwick saw, too. She stood near the side aisle, reading nothing on her clipboard, all her attention contained behind still eyes. Beatrice turned a page. Blank. Turned back. Wrote 1 sentence. Crossed it out so hard her desk shook. The hall remained silent except for pencils and rain. I kept writing my final paragraph because the best resistance at that moment was finishing. That was the passive part nobody understands. Sometimes the bravest thing is not confrontation. Sometimes it is refusing to interrupt your own work for someone else's emergency. The bell rang at 3 o'clock. Pens down, Mr. Bell said. Close your booklets. Remain seated. I closed mine. It was thick beneath my hand, alive with answers. My heart began to beat, so hard I felt it in my teeth. This was the minute. The exact minute. Mrs. Hartwick moved down the front row with a collection envelope, calm as a priestess. She collected desk 1, desk 2, desk 3. Another invigilator took the right side. Mr. Bell remained at the front table, checking the dispatch seals. Mrs. Hartwick should not have been collecting our row alone because her daughter sat in the hall, but Bellwether loved the appearance of trust more than the inconvenience of preventing conflict. Desk 8, desk 9, desk 10, desk 11. Then she reached me. Mira, she whispered, and there it was, the same softness, the The same perfume, the same hand resting on the edge of desk 12. There has been a problem with desk 27's booklet. I looked up slowly. What kind of problem? Her smile remained, but her eyes had gone flat. Do not make me explain it here. We are not allowed to discuss papers during collection. I am instructing you as examination director. Mr. Bell said irregularities need to be recorded. Her fingers tightened on the envelope. This will not be recorded. The hall blurred slightly at the edges. My body remembered the first life and tried to obey before my mind could stop it. I pressed my heels into the floor. Desk 12 knocked once. What are you asking me to do? I said. She leaned closer. Swap papers with Beatrice. The exact words. Not help. Not adjust. Not correct. Swap papers. Spoken into the air between us like a key turning in the wrong lock. You'll survive one bad score, she whispered. She won't. Fear rose first. Then anger. Then something better than both, procedure. I slid my left hand beneath the desk, unclipped the yellow incident slip, and placed it on top of my closed answer booklet. Mrs. Harwick's face changed so quickly most people would have missed it. I did not. What are you doing? She whispered. Recording an irregularity. Do not. Not soft now. Mira. Mr. Bell. I called, my voice clear but not loud enough to be dramatic. In an exam hall, even a clear voice is a dropped plate. Heads lifted. Mr. Bell looked up from the front table. Candidate 184? I need an irregularity witnessed before my booklet is collected. Mrs. Hartwick's hand hovered above my paper. For 1 second, she looked as if she might snatch it anyway. But the hall was watching. Rules had become visible. That is all I had needed. Mr. Bell walked down the aisle. Every step sounded official. What is the issue? He asked. Mrs. Hartwick answered before I could. Candidate Calder is anxious about collection. I looked at him. Mrs. Hartwick told me to swap papers with desk 27. A sound passed through the hall. Not quite a gasp, more like the room inhaling through paper. Beatrice went still at desk 27. Mrs. Hartwick's face flushed. That is not accurate. She said there was a problem with desk 27's booklet and told me to swap papers with Beatrice. I unfolded the incident slip and picked at my pen. My hand shook, but only slightly. May I record the exact wording? Mr. Bell's eyes moved from me to Mrs. Hartwick to desk 27 and back to the envelope in her hand. His expression did not change, which made me trust him more. Yes, he said. Write it now. Mrs. Hartwick stepped back from the candidate's desk. She did not move. Not at first. Her hand still rested on desk 12, pale against the wood. Mr. Bell repeated, step back. She withdrew her hand as if the desk had burned her. I wrote, at collection, Mrs. Evelyn Hartwick instructed me to swap papers with Beatrice Hartwick at desk 27. Words used, swap papers with Beatrice. You'll survive one bad score. She won't. I signed it. Mr. Bell read it, then took out his own pen and signed as witness to the report, not to the truth of the statement. That distinction mattered. Honest systems do not have to decide everything immediately. They preserve the claims so power cannot drown it before review. He placed my answer booklet into a separate transparent envelope, sealed it in front of me, and wrote desk 12, candidate 184. Irregularity report attached across the seal. Then he turned to Mrs. Hartwick. I will collect desk 27 myself. That was when her hands shook. Not dramatically. Not enough for the whole hall to see it first. But I saw the clipboard tremble against her skirt. The pearl bracelet clicked once, twice, 3 times, tiny hard sounds in the silence. Her fingers tightened around the collection envelope until the edge bent. She looked toward Beatrice. Beatrice looked down. Mr. Bell walked to desk 27, collected the booklet, and held it up just enough to check the desk strip. The booklet was thin. So thin. I knew that weight from my first life. It had once landed on my desk like a verdict. This time, it stayed where it belonged. Beatrice's paper went into the desk 27 envelope. Mine stayed sealed as desk 12. The world did not explode.
No lightning.
No music. Just paper entering the correct envelopes, while the woman who had once moved my future with 2 fingers stood unable to stop the procedure she had helped write. We were dismissed row by row after delay. Nobody spoke at first. Students love scandal but fear being too close to it while adults still hold clipboards. As I packed my pencils, the girl at desk 13 whispered, "Did she really say that?" I looked at her. In the first life, I would have softened it, protected the room from discomfort, given power the benefit of the doubt it never gave me. "Yes," I said. The girl swallowed and nodded. I heard part of it. Another small record. Another witness. Desk 12 knocked as I stood, and I almost touched it goodbye. My mother was waiting outside under the covered walkway, rain behind her like a sheet of glass. She knew something had happened before I reached her. Mothers read posture faster than exam scores. "Mira," she said. I opened my mouth, and the first sound that came out was almost a laugh, almost a sob. I kept my paper. Her face sharpened. "Who tried to take it?" That is one of the many reasons I love my mother. She did not ask whether I had done well. She heard the verb kept and understood there had been a hand. I told her everything while students streamed past pretending not to listen. When I said Mrs. Hartwick had threatened that I would survive one bad score, my mother's eyes went dark. "She said that to you?" "Yes." "In front of witnesses?" "Enough." "And you wrote it?" "Yes." My mother exhaled. It sounded like a door opening.
Good.
Then we do not cry in the rain. We go home and copy every email Bellwether has ever sent us. Practical women are history's backbone. That night, our dining table became a war room. My father, whose hands trembled more when he was angry, sorted printed bursary letters into piles. Leo sat beside him with a highlighter, taking his role as junior evidence clerk far too seriously. My mother logged into every school portal and downloaded fee agreements, outreach waitlist messages, scholarship conditions, and Mrs. Hartwick's past emails about family gratitude and community suitability. I wrote a statement while the exam was still fresh, including the time, desk numbers, exact words, Mr. Bell's actions, and the visible reaction of Mrs. Hartwick's hands shaking after he collected Beatrice's script. I did not dramatize. I had learned across 2 lives that the truth is strongest when it does not dress for court unless invited. At 9:16 p.m., we emailed the statement to Mr. Bell, the external assessment office, the principal, the bursar, and Mrs. Bellamy. No, not Mrs. Bellamy. That was another life, another archive. In this story, the librarian was Ms. Ocampo, who had once told me never to submit only 1 copy of anything important. I copied her too, because librarians know where schools hide silence. Mr. Bell replied at 10:04 p.m. Candidate statement received. Desk 12 and Desk 27 scripts preserved separately. Irregularity review initiated. Do not discuss the content of your exam answers with other candidates until results are released. I read that first sentence 5 times. Preserved separately. There are phrases that sound boring until you know they saved your life. My mother made tea nobody drank. My father placed one trembling hand over mine and said, "Desk 12 held." Leo, without looking up from his highlighter, said, "Desk 27 is cooked." My mother told him not to speak like that about other children. Then, after a pause, she said, "But yes." We laughed too loudly, because fear needs somewhere to go. Bellwether tried to control the story by calling it a collection confusion. That phrase appeared in the principal's email the next morning, addressed to all Harrington candidates and families. During yesterday's examination, a minor procedural concern arose during script collection. All materials have been secured. Results may be delayed pending routine verification. Minor, routine, verification. The 3 pillows institutions place over a fire. But students had eyes. Desk 13 had ears. Mr. Bell had signatures. I had the incident slip. And Mrs. Hartwick had hands that shook visibly enough that half the hall began describing them before the school finished diluting the event. By lunch, the phrase "swap papers" moved through Bellwether in whispers. By afternoon, someone had drawn Desk 12 on a whiteboard in the senior common room with a crown over it. Teenagers are reckless archivists. They preserve what adults try to soften, though usually with worse spelling. The investigation began with interviews. Mine was scheduled first because I had filed the report. My mother came with me, wearing her cleanest black cardigan and the expression of a woman who had spent years being polite to institutions and now regretted the wasted energy. Present in the conference room were Principal Rowe, Mr. Bell, a representative from the External Assessment Board named Dr. Shahana Pierce, the school's legal officer, my mother, and me. Mrs. Hartwick was not present. That was good. Too many schools put students in rooms with the adults they accuse and call it balance. Dr. Pierce asked me to describe the event from the moment the collection bell rang. I did. She asked for exact wording. I gave it. She asked whether Mrs. Hartwick had explicitly named Beatrice. Yes. She asked whether I had felt pressured by scholarship conditions. I looked at my mother. Her face stayed steady, though her hands were clasped so tightly the knuckles had paled. Yes, I said. Mrs. Hartwick referenced my family's gratitude in the past, my mother's payment plan, and my brother's outreach application. During the exam, she did not list those again, but she had before, and I understood the pressure. Principal Rowe shifted slightly.
Good.
Let him feel the cost of every soft phrase his staff used in private. Dr. Pierce then placed 2 sealed evidence photographs on the table. Desk 12 script packet and Desk 27 script packet. The desk strips were visible. My booklet thick. Beatrice's thin. We have not marked content yet, she said. But page count and answer density differ substantially. Answer density. Another beautiful boring phrase. We also have statements from candidates at Desk 13 and Desk 18, both of whom heard portions of the exchange, and from Mr. Bell, who witnessed your report. We will review hall audio. Hall audio. I had forgotten the ceiling microphones installed after a cheating scandal the year before. In the first life, had they captured the whisper? Maybe. But no one had a reason to check. Evidence unused is not evidence in practice. This time, the room had to listen. Beatrice was interviewed separately. I did not know what she said until later, but rumors formed instantly. Some said she denied everything. Some said she cried. Some said she blamed anxiety. Some said she admitted her mother told her not to worry if she froze. I tried not to feed on it. That was harder than I want to admit. A part of me wanted her exposed as cruel, not just weak, because clean villains are easier to hate. But Beatrice had not whispered over my desk. Beatrice had not touched the envelope. Beatrice had benefited in the first life and might have expected to benefit in this one, but she was also 17, panicked, shaped by a mother who treated rules as adjustable around her needs. Harm can have layers. Naming them does not excuse the top one. Mrs. Hartwick returned to campus 3 days later, not to work, but to attend a formal review. I saw her through the glass corridor outside administration. She wore a cream coat and pearls. Her hair was perfect. Her hands were not. One hand gripped the strap of her handbag. The other shook slightly at her side, the tremor visible when she reached for the door handle and missed the first time. I felt no triumph. That surprised me. I felt recognition. In my first life, my hands had shaken after results, after bursary meetings, after watching Beatrice receive the scholarship. Fear had lived in my fingers for years. Seeing it in hers did not heal me, but it returned something to sender. The results were delayed 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a long time when your future is sealed in an envelope and the woman who tried to steal it still knows which offices to call. Bellwether placed Mrs. Hartwick on temporary examination leave. My bursary review was frozen pending results, which sounded neutral, but felt like a hand hovering above a switch. My mother's payment plan meeting was postponed after Dr. Pierce requested all candidate families be protected from administrative changes during the review. Leo's outreach application mysteriously moved from waitlist to under consideration, which my father called fear paperwork. Meanwhile, classes continued as if rows of desks had not become evidence. Teachers gave homework. Students discussed parties. Rain stopped. The world has a rude habit of continuing after your private universe splits open. During those 2 weeks, I dreamt my first life in fragments. Beatrice smiling with my score. My mother counting coins. Leo pretending not to care. The crosswalk. The van. Blue packets sliding through water. Sometimes I woke with my hand clenched, as if holding the edge of desk 12. Once, I woke and wrote in my notebook, "Staying seated is an action." That became the center of the story for me. I had always imagined courage as standing, shouting, exposing, moving. But the first brave thing I did was sit. Sit at the assigned desk. Sit with the assigned booklet. Sit inside the rules so firmly the person trying to move me had to reveal she was the one breaking them. Passive non-intervention, if you want a fancy phrase. I did not help her steal from me. The Harrington results were announced in the old assembly hall on a Friday afternoon. Not the full ceremony, not yet. Just finalists and families, because the school still hoped containment was possible. It was not. People came hungry for the outcome. Students filled the back rows. Teachers stood along the walls. Mrs. Hartwick was present but not on stage, seated at the side with the legal officer. Beatrice sat 2 rows from the front, pale, ribbonless, hands clasped in her lap. Mr. Bell stood beside Dr. Pierce at the podium. Principal Rowe looked like he had aged between emails. My mother sat on my left, my father on my right, Leo beside him, vibrating with the need to comment, and the knowledge that my mother would end him if he did. Dr. Pierce spoke first. Following the procedural irregularity reported during the Harrington Scholarship examination, all candidate scripts were secured and reviewed under external supervision. Her voice carried without effort. Desk allocation, script integrity, hall audio, witness statements, and scoring have been verified. Mrs. Hartwick looked at the floor. Her hands were folded, but the fingers moved against each other, trembling slightly. Dr. Pierce continued. The review found that an unauthorized instruction to exchange scripts was given to candidate 184 at desk 12 during collection. The exchange did not occur. Desk 12 and desk 27 scripts were preserved under correct allocation. A murmur moved through the hall. There it was, official and undeniable. The exchange did not occur. The sentence, "My first life, never earned." Principal Rowe took the podium, visibly wishing he were anywhere else. As a result of the review, Mrs. Hartwick has been removed from all examination administration, pending further disciplinary action. Bellwether College accepts the external board's recommendations in full. Recommendations. Another soft word with teeth hidden inside. Dr. Pierce returned to the microphone. The Harrington Scholarship is awarded based on verified scores. This year's recipient is candidate 184, Mira Calder. My mother made a sound like something breaking and healing in the same breath. Leo punched the air and whispered, "Desk 12 supremacy," which my father tried to turn into a cough. I stood because people were clapping and Dr. Pierce was holding out the certificate. My legs felt unreliable. As I walked to the stage, I passed Mrs. Hartwick's row. She did not look up until I was level with her. Then she did. Her face was composed. Her hands were not. The right one shook so badly the program in her lap trembled. I thought of a title that would someday explain everything too simply. I sat at desk 12. She told me to swap papers. Her hands shook. The certificate was heavier than expected. Full tuition, honors program, mentorship, examination integrity commendation, an awkward extra phrase inserted because institutions enjoy rewarding people for surviving harm they should have prevented. Dr. Pierce shook my hand. "You did the correct thing under pressure," she said. I wanted to say, "I did it the second time." Instead, I said, "Thank you." When I turned back to the hall, Beatrice was staring at me. There was no hatred in her face. That almost made it harder. She looked like someone who had watched a bridge she assumed was built for her suddenly require walking. Her score, we later learned, was not catastrophic overall, but her evidence analysis was too incomplete for the scholarship. She placed 19th. 19th at Bellwether was treated like a small social death. I tried to remember that justice was my script staying mine, not her humiliation. Some days I succeeded. The disciplinary report came later, and it was both satisfying and insufficient, like most official truths. Mrs. Hartwick had violated examination protocol, failed to declare a direct conflict of interest in active collection, attempted to procure an unauthorized script exchange, and referenced administrative vulnerabilities tied to a candidate's financial status in prior communications. The hall audio captured only part of the whisper, but enough. Swap papers, she won't, and my voice calling for Mr. Bell. Desk 13's witness statement filled the gap. Desk 18 heard Beatrice's name. Mr. Bell documented the collection sequence. The scripts themselves showed the motive. Mine complete, Beatrice's thin. The board could not prove Mrs. Hartwick had successfully done this before. That sentence appeared in the report. No conclusive evidence of prior successful exchange has been found.
I stared at it for a long time.
In my first life, she had done it. Conclusive evidence died with me at a crosswalk and woke up as memory. That is one of the cruelties of rebirth. You can correct the future, but you cannot submit the past as an exhibit. Still, the review reopened 3 previous scholarship cycles where collection logs had unusual desk strip corrections. Not enough to prosecute. Enough to change policy. Sometimes enough is not justice. Sometimes it is the only door left open. Bellwether changed the Harrington exam rules with the enthusiasm of a school trying not to be sued. External supervisors collected all scripts. Staff with relatives in the hall were barred from examination rooms. Incident slips were redesigned in bright yellow and announced twice. Desk numbers were printed on every page, not just the cover. Hall audio was automatically reviewed if any irregularity was filed. Candidate families with financial aid were protected from administrative changes during assessment disputes. Outreach applications could not be influenced by scholarship performance. Boring reforms. Beautiful reforms. Every future Desk 12 would have more armor than mine did. That mattered. Mrs. Hartwick resigned before the end of term. Her letter spoke of health, family privacy, and the emotional toll of misinterpreted judgment under pressure. My mother read that phrase aloud at the dining table and stared at it as if considering whether paper could be slapped. Misinterpreted judgment, she said. She tried to steal your exam. My father, repairing a neighbor's bike brake at the table because our home had no boundaries between work and life, said, "People with titles never steal. They reallocate." Leo wrote reallocate this on a scrap of paper and got sent to his room for tone, though my mother kept the scrap in a drawer. Beatrice withdrew from the honors program for the rest of term. When she returned, she was quieter, less ribboned, more human. We did not speak until spring, after a practice debate where she performed badly and stayed behind to stack chairs. I was packing my bag when she approached, holding 2 chair legs like she needed something between her hands. "I knew she was going to help," she said.
No greeting.
Bellwether girls, when finally honest, tended to enter through side doors. I looked at her. Help how? I didn't know exactly. That's convenient. She flinched. Yes. Good answer. She set the chair down. I froze on the evidence paper. I looked at her. She nodded like it would be fixed. I let myself believe fix meant, I don't know, a moderation note, extra time, something. A swapped paper? Her face reddened. I didn't ask, because asking would make you responsible. She looked at the floor. Yes. Silence sat between us, not comfortable but accurate. I am sorry, she said. Not because I got caught. Because when you called Mr. Bell, I was angry at you. I thought you were ruining me. It took me days to understand I had been waiting for you to be ruined instead. That sentence was better than tears. Tears ask to be managed. Truth can stand alone. What are you going to do with that understanding? I asked. She swallowed. Take the exam again next year without my mother anywhere near it. And if you freeze, then I get the score I earn. I nodded. We did not hug. Some apologies should not be rewarded with warmth too quickly. But when she picked up another chair, I helped stack the rest. That was all. Winning the Harrington Scholarship did not turn my life golden. It made it possible. There is a difference. Tuition cleared. My mother stopped adding night cleaning shifts. My father bought back 1 set of diagnostic tools from a pawn shop, then pretended he had found them cheap. Leo entered the Saturday mathematics program on his own score and became insufferable about prime numbers. I joined the honors program and discovered that access is not the same as belonging, but access still matters. I worked with Dr. Pierce on an assessment integrity project because apparently nearly dying in one life and surviving Desk 12 in another makes a girl interested in chain of custody systems. I learned how exams fail, not only through cheating students, but through trusted adults, unlogged exceptions, private pressure, flexible envelopes, informal favors, and the deadly phrase, just this once. I learned that fairness is not a mood. It is a structure. If the structure depends on everyone being noble, it is already broken. Years later, I became an assessment lawyer. That surprised nobody who knew the story, and everyone who knew me before it. I represented students in scholarship disputes, academic misconduct allegations, disability adjustment denials, and exam irregularity reviews. Most cases were not dramatic. A student denied extra time because a form was filed in the wrong portal. A regional candidate whose script was lost after a courier error. A dyslexic boy accused of cheating because his typed response differed from his handwritten practice. A girl whose oral exam panel included her mother's former supervisor, and nobody disclosed it. Boring harms. Life-changing harms. I kept a framed copy of the redesigned incident slip in my office, bright yellow, ugly, sacred. Beneath it, on a small brass plate my brother bought me with his first tutoring pay, were the words, "Stay at your desk. Make them write it down." Bellwether invited me back 10 years after the Harrington incident to speak at the scholarship briefing. I nearly refused out of spite, then accepted for the same reason. The North Examination Hall had new lighting, but the same timber beams. Desk 12 had been replaced, which offended me until the facilities manager admitted the old one was in storage because some alumni thought it had historical significance. I asked to see it. He took me to a back room near the stage where old furniture waited to be useful or forgotten. There it was, scratched surface, uneven leg, faint mark where the desk card tape had once stuck. I touched the front right corner. It wobbled. I laughed, then cried so unexpectedly the facilities manager backed away as if I might be contagious.
Sorry, I said.
This desk and I had a complicated youth. He said, with admirable caution. Would you like a moment? I did. At the briefing, I told the candidates the official rules first. Desk numbers, script seals, incident slips, no exchange of materials, external collection. They listened with the bored terror of teenagers who believe rules matter only if they plan to break them. Then I told them a version of the story without names, though everyone knew. A desk is not just furniture during an exam, I said. It is part of the evidence chain. Your paper belongs to your desk until it is sealed. If anyone asks you to move, swap, pass, alter, or surrender material outside the announced procedure, you do not need to be dramatic. You do not need to accuse. You raise your hand and ask for it to be recorded. A boy near the back asked, "What if it's a teacher?" I looked at him, especially if it is a teacher. That woke them up. My mother eventually opened a small stationery and document shop near the train station because our family's trauma apparently always turned into paper services. She called it Desk 12. I told her that was not subtle. She said subtlety was how people stole things. The shop sold pencils, calculators, printer credit, exam folders, appeal binders, and very bright yellow sticky notes that said write it down. Students came in before scholarship exams to buy transparent pencil cases and leave with my mother's unsolicited legal advice. Do not hand anyone your paper unless they say your desk number, she would tell them. Do not trust a soft voice with a closed envelope. And if an adult says you are strong enough to lose something, ask why their favorite is not strong enough to earn it. My father repaired bikes outside when the weather was good. Leo, by then a maths teacher in training, ran weekend problem sessions in the back room. On the wall above the photocopier hung a photograph of the old Desk 12, uneven leg and all. Customers thought it was quirky branding. It was a family altar. I saw Mrs. Hartwick once after everything at an education accountability conference where she had somehow reappeared as a consultant in ethical leadership under pressure. People like her rarely vanish. They rename themselves. She approached me after my panel on assessment coercion, older now, hair shorter, pearls replaced by a silver chain. Her hands looked steady until she recognized me. Then the right one trembled against her program. Tiny. Visible. "Mira Calder," she said. Or should I say Miss Calder? Mira is fine. You have built quite a career. So have you. Her smile thinned. I always regretted how that day unfolded. Unfolded. As if the day were laundry, not a theft interrupted. You told me to swap papers with your daughter. The tremor increased. She tucked her hand behind the program. I made a terrible error in judgment during a stressful moment. You made a plan. Her eyes hardened, and for a second the old examination director returned, the woman who thought soft voice plus authority could move a child from her own desk. You were a very intense girl. I was a seated candidate. She looked away. That landed. Not because it was clever, because it was procedural. Beatrice suffered for years, she said. Beatrice learned to take her own exams. You are unforgiving. No, I said. I am accurately marked. She left before the coffee break ended. Her hands were still shaking. Beatrice became, strangely enough, a good examiner. Not at Bellwether. Never there. She studied psychology, then assessment design, then worked on reducing performance anxiety in high-stakes tests. She emailed me once before publishing a paper on parental pressure and academic dishonesty. I don't want to use anything from what happened without your permission, she wrote. But I also don't want to pretend I learned this abstractly. I gave permission under 3 conditions: no self-pity, no passive voice, and no phrase like, mistakes were made. She replied, fair. The paper included one line I respected. I benefited from an attempted breach before I understood that not asking how help arrives is itself a form of consent. That was hers. She had earned that sentence the hard way. We did not become friends exactly, but we became adults who could sit on the same panel and agree that children should not be turned into vessels for their parents' fear. Sometimes that is enough. Now, when students come to me after something has gone wrong, they often begin by apologizing for not knowing what to do. I froze, they say. I thought I had to listen. I didn't want to make trouble. It was a teacher. It was only one paper. I thought maybe I was being selfish. I know every sentence.
I have lived inside them.
I tell them selfishness is not keeping the work you did. Trouble is not making a broken process visible. Respect is not obedience to an unlawful instruction whispered softly. And freezing is not failure. Sometimes the body stops because it is waiting for the mind to find a rule sturdy enough to hold. Then I teach them the rule. Remain seated, call a witness, write exact words, preserve the material, send the record before anyone can summarize it for you. The simple version is true. I was reborn.
You said a disk tot.
She told me to swap papers. Her hands shook. But the simple version cannot hold the sound of rain on the examination windows, the weight difference between my full booklet and Beatrice's empty one, my mother turning our dining table into a legal office, Leo highlighting bursary emails like a tiny prosecutor, Mr. Bell's pen signing the incident slip, or the way a desk can become a witness if you refuse to leave it. It cannot hold the first life girl who believed survival meant being easy to move. It cannot hold the second life girl who learned that staying put can be its own kind of rebellion. It cannot hold the boring beauty of envelopes sealed correctly, desk strips intact, scripts preserved separately, and a woman's hands shaking because the rule she planned to bend had suddenly stood upright in front of everyone. If you ever sit in a room where someone with power leans down and tells you to trade your work for someone else's future, do not waste your breath proving you deserve what is already yours. Put one hand on the desk. Put the other on the paper. Raise your voice just enough for the nearest witness. Ask for the irregularity slip. Write the exact words. Make the room choose between its rules and its favorites while the evidence is still warm. And if they say you will survive one bad score, remember that survival is not the standard. Fairness is. Stay seated. Keep your paper. Let their hands shake.